We are speaking with Vem Miller. He ran for office here a few years ago. He's been in studio before. We've gotten into it before on political issues, but I never considered him to be a violent criminal. And then when I saw this story, I was like, whoa, I know that guy. I don't think this is a real story. You're a Trump supporter. And I'm not saying that a Trump supporter can't do something like this, but you just didn't strike me as the person that would have. So now moving forward, I don't even know if you can put this in perspective. I wouldn't wish this on anybody, where you're just going to a Trump rally as a Trump supporter by yourself. And then within 24 hours, you're known across the country by many people as a third attempted assassin on the former president. I mean, can you even put this in perspective? If I told you this was going to happen to you a week ago, I would imagine you wouldn't have believed me.
No, it's not. It's just completely bizarre, and it's not America. But I've traveled all around the world as an investigative journalist, been all around the world, and I'm getting text messages from people I haven't seen in like 15 years, hearing this news. India, England, France, all Russia, half the countries in Europe. Like anybody I knew saw this. This was like worldwide and international.
Yeah, and your pictures are all over the web. And I saw a lot of pictures with you with, the Vivek Ramaswamis and the Steve Bannons, because you get around and you meet a lot of people. And I'm looking at all these pictures. Okay, so in conversations with me prior, I don't like conspiracy theories. And as you mentioned the term fake news, yeah, I think there's a lot of fake information out there. I don't like fake information. And you were a part of this. You were a big part of not you giving out fake information, but everybody putting out false information about you, from the police chief all the way down to far right-wing entities. And does this change your perspective at all about fake news, fake information, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat? Because in my estimation, you're the victim here.
I mean, it affirms everything I've been saying for the last 6 years, because my lane's really media. As I worked as a Hollywood producer, did a ton of music videos. I actually have tons of credits, worked as a network executive, developing and selling TV shows in Hollywood, a lot of different networks. And part of my separation from that system was coming out and saying, I'm very concerned about the fake news. And by the way, noticing how Donald Trump is being Frankenbited, that's a reality TV show term, where they essentially Frankenstein footage to create different realities. Right. So I saw that because I saw the core footage, and that's why I turned into a Trump fan. I saw the core footage. I saw how they're doing these reality show editing tricks to present a different reality. And then I became a victim of it. So in a way, I feel like there's a mandate here to clean this up, because imagine this happened to one individual and I've gotten death threats and all that kind of stuff because of this. And my life could have been put in harm unnecessarily. Now think about it in a societal way, right? Iraq war. How do we go to the Iraq war? Because it was all fake news. It was all lies. There was no investigative journalism, because that was an agenda. So having seen the wizard behind the curtains, having worked in Hollywood for 30 years, and now having gone through this experience, I mean, it's like undoubtable right now that this is a cancer, not good for this country, whether you're left or right or whatever. This needs to be cleaned up. And the way to clean it up is not censorship, is not government censorship and giving it to Big Daddy, to kind of tell us what we could say and what we cannot say. So
I'll tell you what doesn't make sense. And listen, as a whole, in general, I agree with what you're saying. You hear Donald Trump and people on the right making the case they're trying to kill the former president, and they're trying to make it sound like it's Kamala Harris's fault, and it's the left, and it's George Soros. Obviously, this was not an attempted, attack on the former president. You and I both know that. You know better than anybody. But the first assassination attempt, we know who he was: a 20-year-old kid who was a Trump supporter, who was at least his family was, and a registered Republican. The second attempted assassination on Trump, even though he never shot at the former president, he voted for Donald Trump in 2016. He was a Vivek Ramaswamy supporter. And I hear what you're saying, because clearly you're the victim here. But when you hear people say they're trying to kill the former president, usually from Donald Trump and usually people that work for him, do you have a problem with that, like I do, in a sense of, we know these two attempts were legit. We also know they're not lefty radicals. And I don't care whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. I don't condone violence. But it just seems like Donald Trump and many of his supporters are claiming that the Democrats are trying to assassinate the former president. And I just don't see it that way. How do you see it?
You know, the way I see it is that there's something called psychological warfare, fifth generation warfare, which is really warfare of the mind. And you have this situation where certainly the mainstream media has been anti Trump from the start, and bad guy, orange man bad, orange man bad, orange man bad. You and I could say our mental faculties, although we're very different, is together. So this wouldn't make you and I go out and hurt somebody. But imagine there's somebody that is not mentally as strong, and they're hearing orange man bad for like eight, he's racist, is this that, and it's like nonstop. A frail mind, yes, I could see how that affects a frail mind, and on an individual
Mhm.
level, I'm not saying that, you know, whether it's organizational or not, that's a different debate, but I'm saying just
Right.
purely basis on the propaganda. And you've seen this in
Yep.
Nazi Germany: Jews are bad, Jews are bad, Jews are bad, right? And what does that do? Normal people that, you know, might have not a strong mind, all of a sudden I'm Armenian. They did the same thing in Turkey or Ottoman Empire with the propaganda of Armenians are evil, they're lower than dirt. There was laws, you know, two-thirds human and all that. Same thing with Jews, you know, same thing that's happened all around, you know, our history. And yes, weak minds will cause damage. So there is a little bit of the culpability there is all on mainstream media because they
Yeah.
should be more mature.
Mhm.
And this is why fake news is
Yep.
toxic.
So two more quick questions for you, Vem. There are a lot
Mhm.
of people on the right and the left that when they heard this story about you, they said this was an inside job thing. It was a setup. They tried to make it seem like there was an assassination attempt to have Donald Trump be the victim again. And you know a lot of these right-wing fringe people, and this was all an inside job. What do you say to those people?
I mean, firstly, to have like a sequence of events occur the way it did, it would mean that the sheriff and I were in cahoots with one another because with the sheriff coming out and doing a press conference. And
Mhm.
so I would have had to know. So the only way that would have worked out is the sheriff and I were in cahoots with each other. Well, I've just filed a lawsuit, you know, 2 days ago
Yeah.
with a very prominent attorney against his sheriff, against his department. I've done a lot of research on this sheriff. I think he's corrupt as hell. I think this is his comeuppance that's been coming long overdue. I think he said he's a constitutional sheriff. He's this and that. His actions do not dictate what he said. It's just a very lavish conspiracy theory. It would
Sure.
require me to put my own life at risk.
Mhm.
To now like think about, oh, I need a bodyguard, oh, I need to move to a secure location, oh,
Right.
like, you know, I gotta, you know,
Yeah.
stop dating half the women that would date me because now they think I'm a freaking, you know, like assassin. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
it would
Right.
be, it would
I
be
do.
like personal suicide, you know.
I do, and for the record, I don't believe that. Unfortunately, there's just a lot of people on the far right and the left that were saying those things.
Mhm.
I don't believe that. Last question, I guess, when it comes to this, if you had a chance to speak to the sheriff, the man who said in a press conference that he believed that he and his men stopped a possible third assassination attempt, basically saying you were trying to kill the former president. If you had a chance to speak alone in a room with the sheriff privately, what would you say to him right now?
You know, coming up in Hollywood, I met a lot of these characters that would basically sell their souls for fame and fortune. I don't think the sheriff is any different. I think he thought he could essentially walk over the corpse of my reputation in order to seek higher political office, seek power. I think he's an opportunist. Those would probably be the first things that come out of my mouth, is me reading him the riot act about everything that I think's flawed about him, everything that I think's dangerous about him, and everything that dictates that he should not be in the position, the privileged position, working under the color of law as a sheriff. Like, he needs to be removed. I mean, that would be my thing. Like, sorry, your life's destroyed now, pal. You did a horrible thing, and you're gonna have to deal with it. And you know what? You should get in touch with your soul and basically not be so much of a prostitute, because he tried to be a prostitute in front of the media. Now, if you're a Trump supporter, he's always saying fake news, fake news, fake news, is attacking the media. This guy was trying to be a media darling. So there's a lot of just, you know, one thing coming out of his mouth, actions being completely different.
Well, I'll say this in closing. Like we said earlier, we disagree on a lot of political issues, but we certainly agree on this one. I think you have a pretty good case here, and I hope you win, because quite frankly, this shouldn't happen to anybody that is innocent. I mean, you have a misdemeanor ticket, right? I mean, that's a simple ticket that you'll take care of in court, and I hope you win. And I hope
Thank
you're
you.
suing for damages. And you know, this is irresponsible. We can't have sheriffs or quite frankly, anybody in legal enforcement saying things like this and putting people in this situation. And when you were released, I said, well, wait a second. Any obvious, anybody with an IQ over 20 would understand if this was any sort of attempt to harm of the former president, they wouldn't have released you in several hours. The whole story makes absolutely no sense. It's absurd. Anyway, Vem, I know we've had our disagreements, but I do appreciate you coming on the show, and I do take your side on this one. And if you have any updates that you'd like to share with us, you're welcome to come back on. Okay, Vem?
Awesome. Okay, one other thing, I thank you. This was actually, I can't believe we had such a peaceful interview for viewers out there. Definitely check out, AmericaHappens.com, the network that I helped to run, online network. We're on Roku, all the smart TVs, also on Rumble and X. And Brian, this was actually a pleasure. I'm surprised. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. My goal was not to have you on the show to talk about our political differences, but I wanted to get down to the truth of what happened. And I believe you're telling me the 100% truth. And the reason why I say that is because evidence backs up what you are saying. You have a citation. That's it. So sorry this happened to you. I wouldn't wish that upon anybody, Vem, and I wish you the best of luck with this lawsuit. And thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian. Have a great day, man. Thanks.
Thank you. You too. All right. That's Vem Miller, everybody. When you look at that interview I did with him in studio 2 years ago, we got into it, man. But then it's interesting because I'm at my friend's house the other day, right? Like right before this happened and right after it happened, I should say. And I'm at the pool hanging out over the weekend, and I'm looking at X, and I'm looking at his name, and they're saying possible third assassin. And I'm like, wait a second. I know this guy. We've gotten into it before. He came in studio. So I hit him up, and obviously he's had a pretty stressful week. I never believed, even though I'm saying this, respectfully, I think Vem is a little bit of a conspiracy theorist and we disagree on a lot of things, but I never looked at this guy as some sort of violent criminal, right? He might be a conspiracy theorist and I might disagree with him on a lot of things. And I don't like some of his opinions, but I don't think he's a violent person. And this story makes absolutely no sense. You can't have a sheriff hold a press conference and basically accuse someone of an attempted assassination on the former president and then release him from jail a couple hours later. That is absurd. And this stuff just can't happen, man. It doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. It doesn't matter whether I agree with you or disagree with you. It doesn't matter whether I don't like you. I don't wish this upon anybody. This stuff can't happen. And we see all these people on the far right, these MAGA supporters, calling it a two-tier justice. Look at this guy. He's a staunch Republican. He's a Trump supporter. Look at what happened to him. And this had nothing to do with Democrats. It had nothing to do with George Soros. It had nothing to do with people with Trump derangement syndrome. It had to do with a sheriff who I believe is a Republican who was trying to make himself look good and make his police department look good. And he effed up big time. Big time. This was a lie. Everything about this was a lie. Okay. He got caught with a gun with too many bullets in it, illegal in the state of California. He was cited for it. He learned his lesson for that. Should he have been behind bars for 5 or 6 hours? I think not. I'm sure they looked up his record or lack thereof criminally, which I don't believe he has one. So you heard it from Vem himself, and I believe him. I believe those fake VIP Trump passes were not fake. That was a lie. Fake tags and all this other stuff. I don't believe any of this stuff. I believe Vem, because if he had fake tags and fake passes and all, he would have been charged with other crimes. He wasn't charged with anything else. Misdemeanor crimes. This can't happen in this country. It doesn't matter whether I agree or disagree with you.